Relegation 6-pointer as Derby County take on Portsmouth this weekend on Friday night at Pride Park Stadium. Now we know Derby County's form of late has not been the greatest at all. With just one win in their previous 11 games, it's becoming a really disappointing run for Derby County. However, in their previous game, they did pick up a really good point versus a really good Burnley side. They put in a really good front foot aggressive performance against one of the promotion favourites. Now, the big important thing for Derby County is that they take that on to games against the sides in and around their position, and Portsmouth this weekend is absolutely one of them. Derby County and Pompey both came up from League One in the automatic promotion places last season, and they find themselves both within that battle at the bottom end of the division. Are they going to be able to go toe-to-toe at Pride Park on Friday night? Who's going to come out on top? Let me know your thoughts in the description. We're going to take a look into it right now. If you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell to stay tuned for all of my latest Derby County content that's heading your way. We keep all across the latest Derby County news, look ahead to the transfer window and all things like that. Live streams will be coming consistently towards the end of December, probably not over Christmas sort of thing, but they will be coming, getting some new internet installed, which will hopefully help with that. So make sure you've hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to stay tuned to that. This is a massive game for Derby County, a massive game for Paul Warne, but it's an even bigger one for Portsmouth, who look to continue a really impressive run of form which they have found over the course of the last few weeks. Obviously, going into this game, there is a few injury doubts with the likes of Ryan Nyambi and Tawanda Chiwa missing out for Derby County. There's a whole host of players who are potentially on the sidelines for Pompey, including Connor Shaughnessy, Jacob Farrell, Jordan Williams, Kushini Yengi and Mark Mahoney, as well as the others mentioned on that list. And it's going to be really interesting for Derby County and Pompey to go head-to-head. Obviously, Pompey won the League One division last year, and in my opinion, Derby County were a better team over the season. I'm not saying Pompey didn't deserve to go up, but in my personal opinion, Derby County were, 5 points away come the end of the season, and at one point they were 14 points off second place. So, in my opinion, Derby County were the better team last season over the distance, but it was just one of those where a couple of poor results early on for Derby County cost them in the long run, and that happens in football. Now, obviously, I've mentioned the recent form of the two sides. Derby County coming into this off the back of one win in their previous 11 games, just coming off the back of 3 back-to-back defeats and 2 draws versus Preston and Burnley. It was a really good result against Burnley. If you haven't checked out my video from yesterday, I spoke about Paul Warne being proved wrong in that game. And it's really intriguing to me that we went from being this cagey, defensive, held in our own half, in our own box team versus Leeds United, to a team that was going realistically guns to the wall whenever we had the ball versus Burnley. And I really appreciated the change of system and the change of style and things like that. And I think it really worked in Derby County's favour. And if we play like that every week, I can't see a reason why Derby County can't go on to be successful in this division. And successful in this division for Derby County is not just not getting relegated, it's also sort of being safe come like April, in my opinion. So it's a very interesting one. You obviously look at Pompey, they've picked up some really good results recently, beating Bristol City and Preston North End, as well as draws to Swansea City and Norwich City. Obviously, there is that defeat in there to Plymouth Argyle, but we can ignore that one for the sake of Pompey for the time being. 4 games unbeaten for them, and they've made a massive jump up the table, not necessarily in positions, but certainly in point standings. Now, if we go over to look at the league table when it loads, we will see that Derby County find themselves in a fairly decent position within the division. We currently find ourselves in 17th place on 21 points. It's 4 points away from the relegation zone. You've then got Pompey on 17 points, literally level on the relegation zone, just goal difference keeping them out of it at the moment. And this is why this game is a 6-pointer, because if Pompey win, they can drag Derby right back into that battle. If Derby win, they pull themselves right out of it again. Could probably go up to as high as 14th place. And it's one of those for me which is going to be absolutely massive come the end of the season. You look at the games that we've lost recently, obviously Stoke a few weeks ago, obviously Oxford was a draw, Cardiff we beat, Plymouth was a draw, I think Hull was a draw as well. Disappointing results. And then obviously you go to the recent one versus Sheffield Wednesday and Swansea, obviously two good sides, but we could be in that position had we turned up on those days. And for me, I think it's massive when you look at the home form for Derby County, sitting down in 14th place off the back of those two defeats. But if we go and look at the away form for Pompey, this is where Derby County fans are sort of going to go into this game on Friday with a bit more pleasure. They've only won one game away from home all season with 4 draws. It's literally identical to Derby County, apart from Derby have played 2 more games, which in my opinion shows a lot of what Derby County can do this weekend when we face up against each other. Obviously, if you look at the last 5 matches, Pompey are in playoff contention form, whereas Derby County are relegation fodder. And it's going to be interesting to see how that progresses. Obviously, you look at the run of games that Pompey has coming up next, and it's not easy for any team in this division. Every team you face is difficult, but Pompey then have Coventry, Watford, Bristol City, Swansea, Sunderland and Wickham before the end of January. If we go back to Derby County, they've obviously not got an easy run because we've spoke about it before already. There's Luton, West Brom and Leeds, as well as Sheffield Wednesday and Bristol City before we get to that Leyton Orient game, which is a cup tie. So it's one of them where this game, maybe the Luton game, are probably the 2 games that Derby County are going to look to get some big points out of. And I think the big talking point for Derby County is, are we going to stick with the 3-5-2? Joe Ward came in versus Burnley and put in an unbelievable performance, in my opinion, out of the wilderness and right into the fire. And what a performance it was from him. And then you obviously go and look at the front line, Dejan Brown and Jerry Yates. I think they were more effective than Mendes-Lang and Caden Jackson have been for a very, very long time. Obviously, there is ways that Derby County can sort of build this squad around those players. And obviously, it looks like David Ozo's still a couple of weeks away, which is disappointing. But it's one of those for me where I think we're certainly going to see a change of situation and a change of style for Derby County heading into this one. And obviously, this game at home, for me, if we stick with the 3-5-2, I'll be absolutely delighted. I think it'll work really, really well for Derby County. I think it's worked really well on the occasions that we've used it before. You obviously go to the game we played against Coventry, 3-5-2, 2 up front. Game we play against Burnley the other week, 3-5-2, 2 up front, unbelievable. It's when we play the 3-4-3 and we don't have that 3 in midfield where Derby County struggle, in my opinion. And I think the likes of Kenzo Holdmine, the likes of Liam Thompson, the likes of Ebou Adams were unbelievable in midweek. And the big question really is going to be, are they going to be fit and ready for Friday? And we're going to see a lot of that. Obviously, Pompey, they played their game versus Norwich on Tuesday night as well. So both teams have had the same amount of rest. And it's one of them for me. I'm really intrigued to see how they set up versus us. You obviously look at the likes of Murphy, a player Derby County were after this summer. Moxon, a player who Derby County were interested in at points over the course of the last 18 months. And there's some really, really good players in this team. And it is going to be interesting to see how it shakes up come Friday night. But should we get into a team prediction? Now, we jump into this team prediction in the 5-3-2, 3-5-2, whatever you want to call it. And for the first time in what feels like forever, I don't think I want to make any changes. I personally believe that this is the way we should set up on Friday night. I believe this is the way that we should go forward. Just because I think Mendes-Lang and Caden Jackson haven't been effective. And their backups in Corey Blackett-Taylor and Tom Barkhuizen also haven't been effective. So, for me, ultimately, it's a squad game. We're going to need 20, 22, 23 players over the course of the year to be able to, compete. Obviously, we've already seen a load of players be used by Derby County. But for me, this is how Derby County should set up on Friday. 5-3-2, exactly the same as Tuesday night. Zetterstrom in goal, a back 5 of Callum Elder on the left, Joe Ward on the right, Cashin, Nelson and Phillips as the centre-halves. Midfield 3 of Ebou Adams, Kenzo Holdmine and Liam Thompson, and a front 2 of Dejan Brown and Jerry Yates. Now, obviously, some people are going to turn around and go, well, shouldn't we be playing 4 at the back at home? Shouldn't we go 4-3-3 and go for it versus Portsmouth? And That's probably what Paul Warne will do. He will probably change it. But for me, this is what we should do. We should stick with what worked versus Burnley and utilise the same exact skill set, but just have more of an impact on the game. Obviously, versus Burnley, we didn't have many shooting opportunities, although we did have a few really good chances with the likes of Jerry Yates, Marcus Harness and Liam Thompson. We were still just a couple of steps away and a couple of inches away from winning that game ultimately. And for me, this team has to stay the same. It has to keep pushing forward and we have to get some consistency, build some partnerships. Now, obviously, you look at Nat Phillips as we head closer to January, he's obviously wanting football. And I think he's done well enough to stay in the team. But if we go to a back four, he can't stay in the team unless he goes into the midfield. But I can't see that happening unless it's a worst case scenario, especially with Ebou Adams and Ben Osborne, Liam Thompson and Kenzo all being fit and available. So it's one of those for me where it's a really difficult sort of decision for Nat Phillips and for Paul Warne whether we go to a 4 or a 5, because I think Phillips has been one of our better defenders over the course of recent weeks, and it's one of those for me. We're going to have to see what Paul Warne does tomorrow. It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be an intriguing one. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Now, obviously, it's going to be a massive one for Derby County. I spoke about it earlier on in the video of it being a little bit of a relegation 6-pointer. And a lot of people will go, oh, well, it's really early in the season. It surely can't be a relegation 6-pointer yet. But in my opinion, it certainly can be. We're heading into that busy December period. We've just looked at the fixtures that we've got coming up. And ultimately, it is really, really tricky for Derby County. And for me, if they're going to be able to take this all the way and stay in the Championship, this is a game which we must win. Those games against those teams around us, we have to beat them. And unfortunately, we've not done that recently. And that is something that worries me going into this one. So obviously, if you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Turn on that notification bell. Hit the like button as well. Let me know what team you want to see down in the comments. And I'll catch you in my next video.